So make sure you pay attention during the coming episodes so that you know everything you need to in order to tackle the next challenge. So today we're going to be learning about functions. Functions are a way for us to make our code look so much cleaner and so much easier to read, and it also makes it so that certain code is kind of reusable, so we don't have to just copy paste a bunch of lines of code. We can just call the same function twice with different parameters. So the way we write a function is just like this int main here. We have first a return value, and then second we have the name of the function, then we have parentheses, and then we have this body right here indicated by these curly braces. Now, when I say return value, I mean what we do down here. So this return 0, what it's actually doing is taking the number 0 and returning it from int main. Now, any number you return from int main is what's called an error code, and it gets kind of printed out down here. I think it should if I hit run, well, it's going to build it. But what happens is whenever you run your program, after your program ends, it returns a little error code. And if we say return means the program ran fine, everything is great. If we return something else, like -1 or 1, then that's going to tell us something went wrong, and we can actually see that. We can write different functions that return different things back to us. So what we're going to do is write a function to where you get the number of humans. So we're going to take this code out of int main, and we're going to move it somewhere else. And this function is going to return num humans to int main. The way function calls work is whenever you call a function, it will return a value to you wherever you called it. So if we call the function here, we will get num humans right here, which is what we're doing now, but we're going to use a function to just make it look better, and it's going to make us much better programmers in the long run. So let's go ahead and do that. Now first we want to type what type it's going to return. So just like int main, this is going to return an integer because num humans is an integer. So we type int. Now we can name it anything we want, but we want to name it something that makes sense. So I'm going to name it get num humans, and then you always type parentheses to indicate it's a function, just like int main. Then on the next line, or if you want, you can do it on the same line, you do your curly braces for the body. So here's where the code goes. Now what we're going to do is basically do this in that function. So we can go ahead and start by copy pasting it. It's not going to work right away. So we copy paste it here, and then immediately we're going to get an error. It says error identifier num humans is undefined. What that means is get num humans, this function right here doesn't know what this is. It doesn't know where this variable is. But you're like, well, we just made the variable up here. Why doesn't it know what kind of variable it is, or what the variable is? Well, that's because this function, or this integer right here, num humans, is declared inside int main. So right down here, this get num humans doesn't know about it, because anything that is referenced inside, or anything that is declared inside int main cannot be read anywhere outside of int main. The only things that can see it are the things inside int main directly below where it's declared. So the way we are going to actually do a C in here is we're going to just make another local version of the variable. We're going to say int num humans. And it's called the same thing, but that's okay. This int num humans is completely different from this int num humans. They are separate variables. Even though they're called the same thing, since they're in different functions, that's fine. This is what's called having different scope, and we're going to learn more about scope in the future, but now you just need to remember that when you declare something in a function, it stays there just for that function. So this is now going to work. We're going to have our variable int num humans, we're going to see out, enter the number of humans, and then we're going to see in the variable into num humans, and then we're just going to return it. We're going to say return num humans, because the whole point of this function is to get this num humans value. So now whenever we want to call this function, all we do is find the code that wants to call it. Right here, we'll put it here. This is where we got rid of the code. We're going to say num humans equals get num humans, just like that. So what's going to happen is as our program is running, it's going to come along here and it's going to get to this line right here, this num humans equals get num humans. And it's going to go into this num humans function and it's going to resume right here. Now it's going to make a new variable called int num humans, the exact same name as this variable. However, they're completely different variables, so it's not going to conflict with that. This isn't going to give you an error. Then it's going to say see out the number of humans. We're going to get cin into num humans, and then we're going to return that. So this variable right here, this different, remember it's a different num humans variable, is going to set get set equal to the return value from get num humans. And this get num humans returns num humans, which we get from cin. So this is going to behave exactly like it did before. Let's do the same thing for skeletons. And to make this really easy, all we have to do is copy paste this and change the words to skeletons. So this is going to say enter the number of skeletons, and then we'll say skeletons, num skeletons, oops, and then we'll just copy paste this and then change the function name to get num skeletons. Copy pasting can be dangerous because if you have an error, then you copy paste the error, but it also makes things a lot faster. The hotkey for copy is Control C, so if you just type Control C on your keyboard, it'll copy. Then if you go to the next line or wherever you want to paste it and type Control V, that will paste it. And then if you want to undo what you just did, or if you want to undo anything, you type Control Z. These three hotkeys will help you become a much faster programmer. I use them a lot. Copy paste is super useful. So it's really good to learn the hotkeys so you're not right clicking all the time to do copy paste. It speeds up your workflow a little bit. So here we have our new get num skeletons function. And we're going to come up here and call it instead of this line right here. So see, it made our main function a little bit smaller, right? It made it a little bit easier to read. So num skeletons equals get num skeletons because we want the return value. It made our main function a little easier to read. Now, as we keep adding more of this stuff into functions, it's going to get smaller and smaller and much more easy to read. And anybody who's reading through the program can just look at this and be like, oh, we get the number of skeletons. And if they don't care, they can just keep on reading. What if they don't care how this works? They care about how the rest of your program works. They'll just read by it. Before, they were kind of forced to look through that code. Now, if they really care about get num skeletons, they can just zoom down to it and look at it. Or if they're in Visual Studio, they can right-click it and click Go to Definition, which will zoom them down there so they can actually look at the code. This is what's going to make your code readable, reusable. What if we wanted to call it again? If we wanted to get num humans again, we can do that. And again and again. Each time you call this, you're saving this many lines of code in your program. This is why functions are so